Hey, Shore Life, it's Thursday. That means another time for an update, and I want to talk about what doesn't change, regardless of what happens on election day. We've already talked about how our peace doesn't change because it only comes through God. And our hope doesn't change because our hope is in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And our protection doesn't change, that God protects us through this world, not from this world, but through this world. Today I want to talk about our identity in Christ. Let me read from John chapter 1, starting with verse 9. It's talking about the coming Messiah. It says, "The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own didn't receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God." He gave us the right to be called children of God. Our identity is in Jesus Christ. We are children of God. Now that's a thick, heavy discussion. There's a lot wrapped up in that identity in Christ, but it does mean that I no longer live for the flesh, and I don't live for this world and what's temporary. I choose to live for God. And I don't live to impress others or to make them more impressed by me and trying to please them all the time. Hey, we need to honor others, and I would love it if people, especially like my parents, were proud of me. But I live for God first and foremost. I'm a child of God. And I don't fear the future anymore, like an election and who's going to be elected. Why? Because I know that I'm a child of God, and he is not going to be faithless. He's always going to be faithful. And I no longer despise suffering. It's hard if we go through suffering. Everybody, human beings, because of sin, go through suffering. But we know as children of God, our suffering can be for his glory. It has purpose. Now, with this election season, you hear a lot of people trying to pigeonhole Christians. If you were truly a Christian, then you would vote this way. Or how can you call yourself a Christian and vote that way? Or if you're truly a Christian, then you need to vote for this candidate. Or Christians would never vote for that candidate. I love it when somebody who doesn't believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, who they don't have faith in Jesus Christ, and yet they want to tell us who Jesus is and which candidate best represents the Messiah that they don't believe in. It makes it very difficult. Now, we can be smug and we can be arrogant and throw it back in their face, but the fact of the matter is, we basically just have to live with this because all of our candidates fall short of God's glory themselves. And sure enough, every candidate is not Jesus Christ. And none of them can raise themselves to that level. So, in a way, the world is right. How can we vote for somebody who is flawed? They're all flawed. But my God is not a God of isms. He's not capitalism. He's not communism. He's not socialism. He's not fascism. My God is not a Democrat. He's not a Republican. He's not a donkey. He's not an elephant. He's not blue. He's not red. My God is a theocracy. He is the King. And my God calls us, and not just us, all believers out of these isms. There are people all over the world that God has called out of isms into his kingdom. Now, he hasn't taken them out of whatever ism that they're under, but he calls them to be his children and his light within that ism. And that's where we are. We're children of God. Now, it's Tuesday when I'm recording this. You'll get this Thursday, so just under 2 weeks before the election day. And things won't change after the election day. Our peace, our hope, our protection, and our identity is firmly wrapped up into God, and we don't have to worry about that. But still vote. Still vote and vote biblically and vote prayerfully. Ask God. Ask God who he is calling you to vote for. There are things that are very important to me. I vote pro-life because I believe that life begins at conception, and I believe that God is a God of life. And so I vote pro-life. I vote freedom of religion. There's believers all around the world who live in countries where they do not have what we have. And probably because of that, their faith is stronger. Their trust is stronger. We've been blessed with this freedom of religion, and we take it for granted. I vote for freedom of religion so that we can continue to sharpen each other, to glorify God in our faith. I vote small government. I wish we had a government that was full of justice, full of compassion, full of mercy, and had these things perfectly. We don't. We have a very good government, but I would like less of it. Maybe if they could master the DMV, maybe I would have more trust in them. Maybe if they could master the tax code and give me something that I could understand, maybe then I would have them oversee my medical records and make decisions medically for me. But until then, I'm fine with less government. Now, most of those are Andrewisms. You don't have to vote like me, except for abortion. I think the others are just choice. They're just my preference. But regardless of these things, my identity is not in red or blue, Democrat or Republican, democracy or communism or socialism or some kind of a monarchy or totalitarianism. My identity is in none of those. My identity is in God and faith in his Son, Jesus Christ, who gives me peace, who gives me hope, and who gives me his protection. Love that verse. John chapter 1, verse 12. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. If you don't know Christ, contact us. I'd love to introduce you so that you too could be a child of God. And those of us who are children of God, let's continue to trust him. Give everybody else a break on their political views. We belong to God. That's where our identity lies. Have a great week. We hope to see you Sunday. We love you all.